So it's time for the meat of the episode, the main topic, board gaming etiquettes. Matt and I have talked about a couple of these specifically in the first couple of episodes, like in the teens. So it's been quite a while. It's been like 3 years. And
time to rehash.
it was obviously before you two. Matt's not here, but I mean, I'm sure we would just reiterate the same stuff we said.
Okay.
But I kind of took all those things that we talked about, mashed them into one topic, board gaming etiquette, because we've talked about some of these things, like I said, specifically. Now it's kind of fun to bring these up, and really it's going to be Eric and I saying the same stuff together, and then George saying something completely different. So I thought it would be maybe we'll have similarities, but we'll see.
And to be honest, I didn't actually prepare for this.
No, that's fine. Well, I don't know how much you need to prepare for this.
Well, that's true.
Anyway, because these are just things that commonly happen in the gaming groups.
Right.
My notes.
I didn't organize my thoughts in any way.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah.
I actually we have some structure here anyway. So the first thing, board gaming etiquette would mostly be talking about things that you do around the gaming table that everybody just kind of understands is what is the norm.
Right.
Like one of those things, I'm actually going to move this to the top because it makes the most sense. Like for instance, cocked dice. And that's one thing that a lot of gaming groups do completely different is how do you handle a cocked die?
Okay.
How do you handle a die that falls on the floor?
And what exactly is a cocked die?
What is it? What constitutes if I move this, will it land? Or
Yeah. So what I do, a cocked die is a die that isn't laying flat on its face.
Right.
For whatever reason, it's on a crack.
What happens if it's halfway on a card?
Wait, the thickness of a card is not affecting.
It's not flat.
No.
It's not flat though. No, it's just,
The slope has to be a certain amount.
Right.
Yeah.
Above 8%.
So,
dude, you would be blown away at tournaments.
I don't do tournaments, so this is probably why.
I know, but I'm saying like some people that is religiously a no.
Oh.
Like no,
Yes.
it shall be re-rolled.
Oh my god. Well, okay. My rule for whether the die gets re-rolled or not is if you can place another die on top of it without having that die fall off, it's fine.
What about 20-sided die? I mean, that's getting challenging.
How do you?
That's
cock
like you turned it into a dexterity game.
If it's like in a crack or something.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Actually.
I see what you're saying though. Like if it's level enough to where it's not gonna
to where another die can sit on it
Yeah.
without sliding or falling off, it's fine.
yeah.
Yeah, that's how we do. How we do it. Yeah.
What about you, Eric? What's your
Well,
feelings?
Depending on the die. Well, if it falls off the table, we usually say anything that falls off the table is not what rolled on the floor. You just roll it back on the table.
Yeah. Same. Re-roll it. Yeah.
If it's on,
You know what? I'll pause you on that one.
Sure.
We're talking about two separate things now.
Oh,
The floor is
okay.
The floor is different than cocked dice.
Oh, we're just talking about cocked dice.
Yeah. We'll come back to the floor.
Okay.
If it's actually leaning up against something substantial, maybe like a phone or something like that, where it's not flat-ish on a surface, I would say re-roll it. But if it's on like a mouse pad or something, where it's not perfectly flat,
Play mat or like cocked on the board of the game.
right? That's fine. You can see the number that it would be.
Yeah,
if you
it's not
remove-
like if it fell more, it was going to bounce another 3 times.
right.
Yeah,
So that's my feeling on it anyway.
I agree with that. I think it's slightly like I have 2 mindsets with dice: board gaming and War Machine.
Yeah.
When you're playing like miniature games and stuff, cocked dice are really interesting because like you're playing on a table that has a lot of terrain and different things, and
Right.
and it just might have a lot of unevenness to it. So I'll either play with something that is flat or roll them off to the side of the table where they're not actually in the game,
Right.
or have big enough dice that they don't matter. Because people bring in these tiny little 13 millimeter dice, 12 meter mount. It's like, dude. But so in a tournament, I'm a little bit more strict on it. But in a board game, I almost don't even care. I mean, if people are like, you whatever, just like, I mean, I do care. I mean, if it's obviously like that should have kept going, re-roll it. But if you're right. If it's like if it's cocked on the game board, the thickness of a game board,
Right.
I don't care. Like that's staying the same.
Yeah. Well, My rule's binary. It's either you can put a die on it or you can't.
That's fair.
So it doesn't matter what it's cocked on.
But then we get to the dice off the table because some people are like, "Don't touch it."
Yeah, it did what it did.
I feel like if it's not on the table, it is not in play.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm the worst at that. I will throw dice across the room, like accidentally trying to roll it. I do it all the time.
But man, in certain games, if you're playing with new people, like these are ground rules you got to establish beforehand.
Oh yeah.
Because they're like, oh, it's a 6. It's off the table, dude. No, it's a 6. It rolled a 6.
Left your hand.
Okay.
If it left your hand, it's rolled.
Yeah. This one's interesting because I see George do it, but I don't really care. But in War Machine, it will bother me. But when people roll a die at a time in a pool of dice,
yeah, George does that. It's like one. Oh, I got it. I don't have to roll the rest.
No, roll them all at the same time. In a board game, I don't really care. But in War Machine, it will, or like Warhammer 40K, where you're supposed to roll a handful of dice. It will. I'm like, nope. It is all or nothing.
Is that because you could roll a die and then take another die and like hit that die with it and change it?
Because in War Machine, or not so much in War Machine, because you're only rolling like maybe up to 4 to 5 dice at most. But you're right. If you're playing 40K and you roll
40 dice,
like 30 dice, if you're rolling them one at a time and you're not really paying attention, how can you remember what 40 dice look like? If you actually bounce into a bunch of them for some reason.
Yeah.
So it has to all happen at the same time.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Even though I don't always do it.
It also kills, like, for me, like, I don't know how, is it suspenseful for you to do it one at a time?
That's why I do it. But to be fair, I don't make them hit each other.
Yeah, no, you don't. You don't.
Yeah.
You're pretty good at actually spreading them out. Yeah.
One at a time. Spread it out.
I almost like the shock of seeing it all at one
once.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I do kind of agree, on George's perspective as well. Sometimes it's not like, did I get it? No, I didn't get it. So you, instead of getting all that at one time, you're doing it in small increments. No, I didn't get it. I
feel like
I got one more chance.
You're just getting more disappointment.
Yeah.
You got more times to disappoint yourself.
That's true.
Because if I roll once, I'm either disappointed or satisfied.
Right.
If you roll, you're like disappointment. Got
it. Yeah.
I guess maybe the last one would be even more amplified if it succeeded.
Right.
That's true.
All right, well, now that we've established kind of what board gaming etiquette is, we'll run through the rest of
dice,
these.
anyway.
Yeah, for dice. So the next one is pretty controversial, I think, or at least not really controversial, but super debatable, but allowing takebacks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Okay.
Okay. Let's get into it.
Because there's degrees of allowing a take back.
There are, and I play with a game group up in Dayton, and we've had this controversy for a while, and actually massive fights have started over this.
Really?
Yeah.
Like super big arguments?
Yeah. Like sometimes we play games for too long and everyone's tired and
gets cranky.
Yeah. Yep. So we've had a big blow up about it, and and I was involved. Like I was the one doing the take back, but I didn't feel it was a take back. Like I felt like
you didn't feel it was a take back.
I felt like I hadn't actually finished my turn.
Gotcha.
But whatever, and then there was a big fight about
it. Kind of like you made a move that somebody else got excited about, and you're like, "Oh, that's kind of stupid," and you went back.
Like I hadn't made the move. Yeah.
Right. And they're like, "No, you moved your purse."
You're a hand. It was chess moves.
It was,
your finger left the piece.
It was that sort of situation. I can't remember it exactly now, but at any rate, everybody got angry. But so after that happened, one of our friends went and bought one of these Vistaprint things of business cards, and on it says something like, "I get one take back."
One take back. Oh yeah. Actually, I was talking to Tim a little bit about it. I watched or listened to a podcast, and they had issues with take back as well, and they kind of implemented something similar.
Yeah.
They had either they said they were going to get coins, or they did make coins, but they made a coin where you get one take back in a game.
So then what happens is everybody got one of these business cards to start out with. And then if you use it, you rip it up. That's it. It's done.
Oh, really?
You don't get any more. But here's the thing. If somebody else does a take back, right? And like if you do a take back and you don't have one of these cards, you will get one of those cards everybody else will get another one of those cards.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right, so it just keeps going.
So you might be able to pull up a few of these takebacks and be okay, but if you try to if you do a takeback without one, everybody else
is getting a card. Yeah, so it's kind of. It has actually solved the problem because
oh really nice.
You either use your card or you don't,
right,
and so
that's kind of interesting.
But nobody can say anything if you use your card. It's like it doesn't matter, guys, that you don't like that I'm taking.
Do you still have rules on take back? Like what
how
we
long?
usually do is as long as there's no new information that's been set out after your turn ended, or maybe even after the next person has already taken their turn or is in process of taking their turn, that might be too late.
You can't use it to get an unfair advantage. Yeah, if there's new information that you wouldn't have had, of course.
Okay.
But if there's a way to undo that new information, if that
like new cards came out, it's like, all right, those new cards didn't really
haven't
matter.
Happened. Shuffle them back in. Whatever. If there's a way that everyone...
I don't like that.
Oh, man. No, you're talking to the wrong person. The deck is destiny.
Yeah, that is, right.
That's destiny.
You don't shuffle those.
You're just destined to have that third card from the top.
But the shuffle is destiny, too.
That's true.
You altered reality.
Right. Yeah. We're in Dimension 2 now.
We have preset this game.
Yeah.
And now you've changed it.
Yeah, I don't do that.
I don't either, but I'm just saying, I know.
That's really funny.
Some people, especially if it's like, all right, everybody draw a card. Stop.
Right. Who's supposed to draw that first card? In turn order.
Oh, that would make me mad. It drives me mad.
Yeah, you know what? It's weird because at first I was really stickler on some of this stuff, and I've kind of gotten relaxed as times went on, like many years. But I know some people, like not necessarily our gaming group, but like some other people we've gamed with and stuff. They are like, no, and like upset. Yo, you draw. You drew my card.
That was supposed to be my card.
Yeah, especially if you do something cool with it next turn.
Right.
They're like, I forfeit.
I've been in these kind of altercations before, like I was saying with the whole take back thing. But at this point, I'm done with that. Like, I don't care.
That's fair.
I'm not gonna have that's not my gaming experience anymore. It's whatever. I don't care. Let's just do it. Let's just play.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. What about stuff like well, I guess I should say what I think too. With takebacks, for me, I don't quite care that much because I'd rather have a really good playthrough of a game. Now, if it's a game we've played like 30 times and it's starting to become competitive, I don't consider the first or second playthrough like a competitive experience.
No, it's a learning game.
Yeah, everybody's trying to learn the game or whatever. So if you're taking takebacks or whatever,
but
you're trying to win. But what are you winning for? I mean,
to win.
You're trying to win, but I mean, it's not like you're going to get some kind of trophy.
What else would you pay?
But like what I'm saying is like if you played many games of Magic, eventually, that's competitive because you're like, I'm trying to show you that I'm better
than you. Because better than your deck.
Because it's like arm wrestling. I mean, you don't just play you don't arm wrestle and be like, oh, I lost. Like you arm wrestle later on as you arm wrestle a lot because you're like, I want to show somebody that I'm the more strong person or something. I don't know.
Actually, I don't even know why anyone arm wrestles, to be honest.
It's dumb. But the comparison here is what I'm saying is if you're good at something, you want to try to win at that point to show to be like, I'm experienced at the game. So I don't really consider the competitiveness in the first couple of playthroughs. But with that being said, that's why I don't mind takebacks that much. But as we played the same game many times, that's when I'm kind of like, you should know better.
Yeah.
Like there shouldn't be a lot of takebacks at that point.
Right.
And it what about deep takebacks? Like 3 people have went. You're like, no, dude.
That's a no. That's a no.
Well, on another segment on takebacks is, I forgot to get my corn.
I did put that in. What about entitlements? Like resources
I forgot to get my corn,
stuff.
On my turn, and that was 3 turns ago or whatever.
Right.
What do you feel about that?
Well, okay. Most of the time I'm going to say, okay, get your corn. But if you're forgetting to get that corn, meant that there's only a little bit of corn left
for me,
and now it's my turn, and I'm just doing what I was going to do to get that corn, and you're like, oh wait, I forgot to get my corn. And now that means I don't get my corn, then I'm sorry. That was 3 turns ago. Why did you forget your corn?
Right. And I feel like you should do the business card rule on that too, because I mean, dude, pay attention to what you're supposed to get on your turn.
Yeah.
But again, at the same time, it's not that big a deal.
Typically, no. I think most cases I don't care. I mean, if you forgot to get something that's cool, I mean, as long as you're playing with people with good integrity and they're not trying to cheat and be like, I got the corn, but if I say I didn't get it, and people are cool with it.
Yeah, and there's levels to that. Like, it could be something where you're like, well, I just forgot to get my corn, but it could be something where you're like, oh, if I would have gotten stone instead of corn,
right,
I'd be having a better turn next time. You know, it's like, no, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You didn't get stone.
Right. Yeah, that one is, I'm guilty of that sometimes. I have done that where
you realize too late. Oh, I should have got
because at the very end of your turn, you're like, get one resource.
While you're planning your next turn, you're like, oh, man, I got the wrong resource.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's probably the only time I've done that.
Yeah, that could happen quite a lot.
Yeah. All right, well, moving along. What about assisting opponents with strategies or making them aware of things that they weren't aware of?
Oh, this one drives me mad as well.
Well, I guess we'll separate these. So unless you consider them the same. What I mean by assisting with strategies is be like, oh, you know what? Well, I guess it's kind of the same thing. What I mean by, I guess the difference would be like, if I'm telling Eric, well, it doesn't really happen too much, but if I'm telling Eric, like, oh, well, you can go over here and do this and this, and it might get you 6 points, but if you go over here, it'll get you 7 points, but you may not have seen that or something. But making you aware of things is, if you go here, then George will be able to.
Exactly.
Well, most of the time, that is why you're kind of laying on the strategies and like, well, this is a good move for you. I mean, it's going to hurt George and maybe benefit me, but it is a good move.
Yeah. All right, we'll combine all that together. It's kind of the same stuff.
Yeah, and okay. So I really think this is on that scale of how well do you know the game again?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, like, if it's a learning game and the person doesn't know what they're doing, okay, you know, tell them some strategies, help them out.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
If your idea of telling them strategy is, I'm only going to do it when it benefits me and hurts the other guy, that makes me crazy. Like,
yeah.
You have to be consistent about it. If they have a good move, even if it hurts you, like, you should tell them.
Yeah.
If you're telling them.
I do that quite a bit. I'm just like,
you do. That's true.
You need to do that. I mean, I'm getting screwed by it, but I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, you do that quite a bit, actually. Yeah. But then when everyone knows the game, then it becomes metagaming. You're just trying to convince them to do a thing because you know what the effect is going to be, and that's fair. If everyone's doing it, then that's fun.
True. I don't know. I don't even like it, even if it's fair. If everyone's doing it, I feel like if the game has a social element to it, then cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, or even if someone is maybe at a disadvantage or needs that help, you're like, okay, you know, maybe you don't fully understand the game or something else.
He's talking about if everybody's kind of experienced.
But yes, and if everybody's experienced, they should kind of win on their own accord and not group.
No, but if everyone can do it, like if I can look at what you're doing and say, you know, if you would do that, wow, that would really screw Tim over. You know,
okay,
then
so
it's up to Tim to say, well, but
right,
you know,
but
it does
if
see
you do
that.
This,
that brings in an interesting point that I didn't have on here is the communication etiquette. Because think about it like this: if you're playing Risk, the communication is severe because you are like having alliances and then breaking alliances and stabbing each other in the back and all that stuff. If you're playing Agricola, I don't think that's really the
well, you're kind of doing the same thing,
but
it's worker placement spots.
What I'm saying though is Agricola's like theme and style and feeling doesn't include treacherous activity. I mean, it doesn't include
for
like
most people.
If you burn down his farm, no, like you know what I'm saying, like take that spot so we can't get this car.
Right.
I mean, you're farmers, dude. It's like
who's coming 1 point per wood? You better take that pile of wood.
Yeah, who's coming over to my farm and stealing stuff? You know, like so. I think like the atmosphere of the game isn't supposed to be in the social realm. Whereas like something like Risk is. And so it's weird certain games where you're getting into this massive like arguments and backstabbing and like stuff like that in games like Agricola where it's like, that's not what this game's about, you know?
Yeah. And
that really is group dependent, by the way.
It really is. And it can also be dependent on the person whose turn it is. If it's a person who just takes forever to take their turn.
You might just want to help them out to hurry the process.
Yeah, here, do this.
Yes.
Just do this.
Mathematically, you're getting 10 points more doing this. Just
Yeah,
do it.
exactly.
I'm gonna save us all.
This is what you're
15
looking
minutes.
for. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it can backfire too if they're about to make their move and then somebody says, if you did this, and they're like, oh well, let me think about that for another 3 minutes.
Yeah, they'll provide them with AP as they were making their move.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I don't care too much about other people giving other people strategy and pointing things out. I think it's healthy to make players better because you do it in one game. It doesn't mean that it doesn't carry over to another game. If you help allow other players who aren't as experienced see things that they normally don't see,
right?
It's going to be a skill they develop against all games, not just that one game.
Yeah.
Like you get good at chess, you're probably going to be able to convert that skill level into other games as well. Because planning 2 to 3 moves ahead in chess?
Yeah.
Or Shobu.
Or Shobu. That is significant. Like, I didn't understand that when I was a kid, because I didn't play a lot of board games and I thought chess was crap. I mean, I like chess now. I don't mind playing it. I don't try to play it all the time, but it really does. Seeing 3 moves ahead is phenomenal as far as strategy.
Absolutely.
So help making people better is always a good thing.
Yeah, and
so you in a tournament, it's cutthroat. No,
right. And sometimes it can just be like, as you said, the social aspect of it, and you're pointing out something because it's funny that you're pointing out that this person should destroy this other person, and trying to defend that position, even though obviously they should not do what you are telling them to do.
Yeah.
It can just go round and round, and that can be fun. So it does depend on the group, I think.
Yeah, the group and what kind of game it is too.
Yeah, if it's
really fun if you're playing a game where you're trying to kill each other anyway, and then you're manipulating people.
Right. Then
no, I'm serious. Like this great move, and they do it. They get annihilated. Like, what did you do? You're like,
yeah.
That's cool. I mean, that's. I think it really depends on if it's in the spirit of the game you're playing. But
yeah,
sure.
It has its time and its place. I don't know that you can say it's bad etiquette necessarily. So
that's fair. Here's one that is kind of an etiquette type of thing. What about moving or touching other people's pieces, or giving them the resources or the money or whatever they're supposed to get? Drawing cards for them. That's a superstition right there.
Oh, I don't mind it. Sometimes it kind of helps the flow.
Absolutely.
Here's your wood. I'm closer to the wood. You don't have to.
Yeah.
Or here's your corn. Here's your wood. Here's your stuff. Here's your card.
Absolutely agree. If it speeds up the game, go ahead and do it. Except for the moving the piece, if
I want to
physically can't do it.
Yes. Yeah. In those cases, where your score marker is on my side of the board.
Well, score markers, whatever.
I'll move your score marker for you when it's on that side of the board. You can move it for me. I'd rather you move it than me get up and get up there and move my own piece.
But for the most part, I want to move my own like meeples and stuff.
Yeah, I want to play the game too.
That's right. Yeah.
That one actually spawned from a specific episode where I was complaining about War Machine because you don't move anybody's pieces in that. Like, don't touch my stuff.
Gotcha.
But that's a game of precision too, so it's a little bit different. Or if you're playing like a dexterity game, like don't pick up my dice, or stuff like that because maybe no one saw what's going on or whatever. But in board games,
give bad juju to my dice.
Yeah, well, not necessarily that, but if I roll them and you're trying to pick up the successes or whatever, it's just really weird. Some people get in this weird thing where they pick up the successes. No, don't ever do that. Pick up the failures, because you leave what is valid, and you can't question what's in your hand because they're failures no matter what. If you pick up all the successes, you're like, I'm pretty sure you picked up a 3 out of 5. You know what I mean? It's like that was supposed to be a failure.
Yeah.
So that gets really weird. But in board games, I don't really care too much as long as you're telling me you're doing it. Because what really gets weird is like,
no, I agree with you there.
You move the score marker and somebody's like, oh, I get 2 points, and the other person's like, doesn't say anything because they're not paying attention now. Right. Now that person just got double the points.
I absolutely agree. You have to. It all has to be communicated.
Yeah,
absolutely. Another thing I'll say about that is, it has to be amongst the players playing the game. Like if your child is coming up and wanting to just pick up a card and take a look at it, that's not good for me. I don't.
Yeah.
That actually brings us. Well, that's a crazy segue that you actually did that for the last thing, and that's and it's kind of like goes vice versa. Giving advice when not a player of the game.
Oh, that's bad too. Yeah.
I want to stab somebody at that point. Like, I mean, I'm not violent, but
Are you talking about someone that comes from behind, watches the game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is a good move for you.
oh
That-
yeah, you
exactly.
should totally try that.
That should not happen. Don't do that ever.
Stay out of this.
Yeah.
I don't even care if I lose the game, but stay out of this.
Yeah.
Like, man.
Exactly. Yeah. Just don't do it. And teach your children not to do it. Like, if you're sitting there playing awkward guess and a child comes up behind you and is like, well, what does it mean that
Yeah. No blunt weapons.
Yeah.
That's actually worse than what I was saying, because that's helping everyone but you.
Right.
So everybody else is probably like, hey.
Or you're playing letter jam and like the kid can see your letter and he's like, well, I can spell blah, 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 blah. Like, okay, great.
I think this happens not as much anymore, but I've seen it so much at conventions, dude. Like, you're playing a game and like somebody's friend comes up like, oh no, actually what you should do is blah blah, because they've played the game a lot. You're like, dude,
Right.
we're all learning here, buddy. Stay out of this.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think it's that might be the most irritating. That's a pet peeve of mine when it comes to board gaming pet peeves. I'm pretty sure we did a like maybe it was a really early episode. Were you on that one?
I think so.
Board gaming pet peeves.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of my pet peeves. Is people giving advice outside the game. I'm pretty sure it was. If it wasn't, it should have been.
No, I'm absolutely with you on that one. That's a definite.
That drives me bonkers. That's all I had on this. Did anybody else have any other gaming etiquette things they can think of that?
Yes, I just thought of this one. There are no relationships at the board gaming table.
Yes, actually, that's a great one to put.
I like that one.
Yeah,
Don't you have a
because
shirt?
I have a shirt that says
Okay.
that. Yeah. Kat made me that shirt.
Oh, did she? Okay. That makes
does
sense.
she have to learn the hard way? Or?
Everybody should learn this, though.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't matter like how
You can't just be nice because you're married to them.
exactly.
That's literally dumb.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you have to play the game. I don't think anybody.
Or if you're not
No.
married to them and you want to be married to them,
I mean,
I don't care. Don't be nice.
It's usually newlyweds or people
Yes.
that's not been together a long time. They're like,
Yeah.
I can't do anything to hurt her or him.
I won't do anything to my beautiful wife.
Yes.
Like,
Even though it's obviously the best play.
and the ones that
and she's winning, and you're second place.
Yeah.
and like if you just did that, you would win. It's funny how like as you get like typically it's like newlyweds, and then as you're married for 10 years, you're like, I'm gonna stab you in the back.
Right. Take
You
out all your
traitor.
aggression.
This game doesn't even have a traitor. Oh, sure it doesn't, traitor.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think our group's pretty good with this, but yeah. I've seen this happen before, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me, dude.
Yes.
I'm just gonna destroy both of you.
Yeah.
Double the enjoyment. So
Yeah, and this one is one that I'll admit I'm far more strict about than probably most people, and that is I don't want drinks around my games. I don't want food. I don't want people eating food and then playing my games. Like if you eat something, wash your hands, then play the game. And I'm probably I shouldn't be the way I am about it, but I am. I just am.
no, that's fair. I mean, you're trying to protect your stuff because I mean, a lot of these are super expensive Kickstarters that you'll probably never get again, or without spending $300 or something stupid.
Yeah. So
You know, I did think about one more, which is actually pretty relevant. What about cross game grudges?
oh no, that's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do not like that at all.
Yeah.
What happens inside one game is a vacuum. We moved on.
To some point.
Right.
Some
no,
people
you
know.
just lied to me on this last game. I'm not gonna believe you again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a grudge, but I
No,
mean,
that was just the character.
Right.
I mean, you
It's
were
like-
obviously doing this every game.
Yeah. But there could be I mean, I don't like it, but it happens. I'm involved in it. There's certain players that I know if I'm in a game with that player, they're coming after me. So
yeah, I don't like that either.
so I got to go after them first, and it's just it's vicious cycle, right?
Right.
And I don't like it, but I know that it's the way it is.
Yes.
Yeah, there was one person that was in our gaming group that we played a lot of games that were like dudes on the map kind of games. he would just sit, and it's like the first person that hits me,
It's
I
going
will
down.
focus on you 100%.
I will destroy you.
and lose the game to destroy you. I'm like, that's dumb. That is like, there's no logic behind that other than you just want to be a jerk.
There is absolutely logic behind that.
I mean, there's bad logic.
That is what I did when we were playing The Godfather.
Oh. Okay.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it
Look.
absolutely works, and I won that game.
Huh.
That was
That's
a weird.
true.
I wasn't in that one.
No.
But if like you were playing Risk, and I'm just degrading it to the lowest denominator here.
I
but,
defend myself in that particular example because that's what a gang would actually do. If you came
Yeah.
after a gang, they're
So,
gonna
yeah.
go after you.
fair enough. But like strategically, it doesn't make any sense in most games, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially because like you're beating on like the fourth of the fifth players, and you're the fifth. You're like, oh, I'm just gonna take out the. What are you doing? Try to take out the first player or something. I mean, that might be
Yeah.
king making somewhat.
I mean, I'll cop to this one. Like, I'll do this one. It's bad. I agree. I shouldn't do it.
Mhm.
But I will admit it does happen.
Well, no, here's what I'm saying though.
Well,
I'm talking about cross game. Like if you're
or cross game,
I
or for
guess-
the whole game, or something.
Yeah, the whole game. Like
Yeah.
if I
Yeah,
did
it-
something bad to
doesn't make
you
sense.
and you try to get me back, understandable.
Eye for an eye.
Right.
If I did something bad for you and the next 8 turns of the game,
You're like, you're just going down. It doesn't matter.
Right.
it's like, George, you
No.
could score 20 points here or hit me for 3 and kill one of my guys. Kill one of your guys. It's like, okay.
If I feel like that first thing that you did still hasn't been addressed,
I don't feel good yet.
That's fair. I guess I can understand something like that a little bit more, but you know, like cross game grudges, I don't
yeah.
I don't get that.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you
Yeah.
on that. And that first thing would have to be pretty egregious for me to go after you 8 times. Like,
Yeah.
Now we're even.
All right, cool. Anything else, or are we moving on to the final topic?
Nope.
I think we're good.
I think we are.